This is Afrigen Energy, bringing you a closer look at one of Africa's biggest infrastructure challenges and one of its most consequential investment opportunities: the race to bring reliable electricity to nearly 600 million Africans. According to the International Energy Agency, nearly 2 out of every 5 people in Africa, approximately 600 million people, still live without access to electricity. Even more concerning, fewer than 19 million people gained access in both 2023 and 2024, compared with approximately 23 million in 2019. Africa therefore faces a race against both time and population growth. The most ambitious coordinated response is Mission 300, a partnership led by the World Bank Group and African Development Bank. Its objective is to connect 300 million people in sub-Saharan Africa to electricity by 2030. The World Bank is targeting 250 million people, while the African Development Bank is targeting another 50 million. And this is no longer simply a target on paper. As of June 2026, Mission 300 had already connected more than 50 million people across 40 African countries. But the mathematics shows the scale of what remains. To connect 300 million people by 2030 requires an average equivalent of approximately 50 million people every year, 4.2 million every month, 137,000 every day, 5,700 every hour, or approximately 95 people every minute. And even if Mission 300 succeeds completely, another substantial portion of today's electricity access deficit would remain. Africa cannot solve this challenge by simply building more generation capacity. Electricity must reach the consumer. That requires an entire infrastructure chain: generation, transmission, distribution, transformers, substations, meters, mini-grids, battery storage, solar home systems, digital payment systems. In densely populated and economically active areas, grid expansion will remain fundamental. But millions of Africans live in remote, rural, or difficult-to-reach communities where extending the conventional grid can be expensive and slow. This is where distributed renewable energy, particularly solar mini-grids and standalone solar systems, become strategically important. Mission 300 explicitly combines grid expansion with distributed renewable energy solutions. The objective is therefore not one technology. It is the right technology for the right location at the right cost. Electricity access is not simply about turning on a light. It is about creating productive capacity. Reliable electricity allows farmers to irrigate, refrigerate, and process agricultural products. It allows small businesses to operate machinery. It enables hospitals to maintain essential equipment in cold chains. It supports schools, telecommunications, digital services, and manufacturing. And increasingly, it supports data centers, artificial intelligence, and Africa's rapidly expanding digital economy. This is why the electricity access deficit should also be viewed as an economic deficit. Every community without reliable power represents economic activity that is more difficult, more expensive, or simply impossible to undertake. The biggest constraint may not be technology, it is capital. The IEA identifies lack of capital as a major obstacle to achieving universal electricity access in Africa. The World Bank estimates that connecting its targeted 250 million people will require approximately $30 billion of public sector investment, while the associated distributed renewable energy opportunity alone could generate approximately $9 billion in private investment. And this is only part of the wider opportunity. Generation assets, transmission lines, distribution networks, mini-grids, solar systems, storage and productive use equipment will require substantially more capital. This creates opportunities for governments, development finance institutions, commercial banks, infrastructure funds, pension funds, private developers, and institutional investors. But capital will not automatically flow simply because the demand exists. Projects must be bankable. That means credible off-takers, sustainable tariffs, strong regulation, transparent procurement, realistic financial models, appropriate risk allocation, and predictable cash flows. Africa's electricity deficit is therefore simultaneously an engineering challenge, a financing challenge, and a massive infrastructure opportunity. The continent needs to build generation while simultaneously expanding the networks required to deliver that electricity. It needs large utility-scale projects, but also thousands of smaller distributed systems. It needs international capital, but also stronger domestic and local currency financing markets. It needs government leadership, but also private sector execution. And critically, it needs projects that can move from concept to financial close, and ultimately to reliable operation. The World Bank and African Development Bank are already pushing the private sector to mobilize the billions required. The World Bank Group's IFC and MIGA have committed $5 billion in support of private sector investment under Mission 300 through 2030. Nearly 600 million Africans without electricity represents one of the world's largest infrastructure deficits. But it is also one of the world's largest opportunities to create economic value. The question is no longer whether Africa needs electricity. The question is how quickly Africa can build bankable, affordable, and reliable electricity systems capable of powering its next generation of economic growth. The winners will not simply be those who generate the cheapest megawatts. They will be those who successfully combine engineering, finance, technology, policy, and execution to convert Africa's enormous electricity deficit into investable infrastructure. If you like this video, subscribe to Afrigen Energy, turn on notifications, and join us as we explore the projects, investments, technologies, and financing strategies shaping Africa's energy future.